the 5-6 Vice President. Super excited for today's opportunity to have Chief, any other senior NCOs. Thank you all for joining in. This is an amazing opportunity, and we're looking forward to it. So the big thing about this is, how does our NCOs, our 5-6 members, and everybody out there, how do you fit into the Air Force recruiting service moving forward in your career? So we wanted to have you come on today just to answer some questions, pick some brains, and see what we can come up with. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Tech Sergeant Adam Wright. He's an EA recruiter out of the 367th Recruiting Squadron. So the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So thank you, Tech Sergeant Davis. Let me start off with the question and the title of this seminar. How do you fit into AFRS's future? It's safe to say having to adjust during a pandemic has many of us asking, how will our approach to inspiring, engaging, and recruiting continue to change? Prior to the pandemic, many of us still had questions and concerns on this topic. Be ready to take notes and feel free to post your questions in the Zoom chat window. Now, without further hesitation, I'm honored to introduce you to our guest speaker for the Air Force Recruiting Services 8R, Career Field Manager, Chief Master Sergeant Daigle. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And I appreciate the chance to come and talk to you guys and kind of share the things that, I don't want to say keep me up at night, but that stay on my mind. And, you know, as our Air Force is ever evolving, guys, I can't reiterate that enough. The Air Force is ever evolving, so we have to be ever evolving, right? I've got a list of questions here, and I can go by the questions, or I can answer what's on you guys' mind, and we can have a conversation here. I much prefer the conversation because let's just keep it real, right? The three things I want to make sure that we cover here, and then I'm going to reiterate to you guys, is the master of your craft. And I saw the 39th Pro Soup last night posted it on Facebook about mastering your craft, and it just hit home with me, because I think sometimes we forget that piece, right? Any questions out there? Anything y'all want to cover up before I start just rambling on, I guess I should say? What's on your mind? Y'all want to listen to me ramble? Right on. Right on. Okay. So one of the questions was, will AFRS move to a virtual recruiting structure permanently now that we have proven the model works with exceeding last FY's productions? Do you think pandemic helped our goal and outcome, and why? So I'll answer the second question first. Do you think the pandemic helped our goaling outcome? So we know that goaling was reduced because of the flow through BMT. That was our goal reduction we had at the end of the year. Whether or not we're better virtually or in person, I think is debatable by many points. So the Navy has tried the virtual piece where they pulled out all the small cities and they only had a virtual presence, and they didn't fail, but they saw a large decrease in their contacts and their sessions. Are we looking at doing a virtual piece? Yes, we just had the EDT a couple weeks ago. The enlisted development team got together at the schoolhouse, and we started working on the new curriculum going to the schoolhouse, and there's going to be a bigger virtual piece in there because we do think it has a lot of value. Will it only be 100% virtual? I don't foresee that happening in the near future. I do foresee it being a piece, and I think it increases our timeliness and the ability to do things and our flexibility by having virtual. But I don't ever think it'll be 100% virtual. You think about those guys out now, you San Antonio, right? You're out at Randolph Air Force Base and you really love Chick-fil-A. And Chick-fil-A and Pat Booker says, we're going to be virtual now. Virtually, you can drive across San Antonio to get Chick-fil-A. How many people would drive across San Antonio for Chick-fil-A? There would be people who do it, but how many of them would just say, nah, I'll go to Whataburger, right? So with that theory in mind, we want to experiment into the virtual world, but I don't know how deep we'll go. We're going to put some training in there as far as the social media piece and generating leads other than just, the telephone calls and stuff like that. But there's a piece of virtual that gets a little shaky whenever we have everybody just working from home and there's no people at the front door ever to answer the mail. Any questions about that?
We had a question come in through the chat.
Yeah.
They're asking if special warfare recruiting is going to ever become tier 1.
I can't say it's on the horizon right now. When we've had talks about it before, and Chief Dixon, I mean, we did the SW Tiger team together earlier this year, and we've had many, many conversations around this. I'm not sure we can sustain the model, and that's the piece that we gotta come to understand. And I will talk a little bit deeper into the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and growth plus towards it. And once we get some of the questions out the way, and I'll give you kind of the raw data of where we're at on the strength of the career field. Any other questions? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to move down the list, sir. Okay, recruiters have enjoyed working from home for the most part and only going to the offices as needed. Do you think this can continue, and what would help increase recruiter, and do you think this would help increase recruiter retention?
I don't know. So it's funny because we were just on the AFRS staff meeting, and General Thomas is in his dress blues, right, at his home office. And during the call, he's like, "How many of you guys like teleworking?" And probably about a third of them raised their hand. And just from the individuals we know, you could see a lot. For introverted personalities, working from home is probably a lot better. I'm an extroverted person, right? So I have to go to the office. I need human interaction other than my 2-year-old and my 6-year-old. So I think it really depends on, some have enjoyed working from home. Some people are like, I got to get out. I got to get into the office. And I know I see people in polos and stuff at home, and I see people in polos and uniforms at the office, right? So it's kind of a mix. Is it something that, will increase recruiter retention? We don't have a recruiter retention issue. And I'm not sure if that's a myth somewhere or a rumor that was let out. We're roughly, close to 90% of recruiters that want to stay. 90% of the people, the MOIs we get, people want to stay. We get about 10% of the MOIs every cycle that say, hey, you know what, I want to return to my functional. That's okay. I don't know if working from home would increase the retention rate. You guys tell me if I'm wrong. Would working from home increase your desire to stay in recruiting service?
Yeah, if anything, I think it's just an extra tool for us in recruiting service. So having another tool in our toolbox to help us perform better, but I wouldn't say it's going to change my direction.
I would say it definitely it increases flexibility. It increases flexibility. So for those introverts, it may, and for the extroverts, I think working from home is like, no, I need interaction with people. Like if you put Matt Mocco, if everybody was Chief Mocco, you put Chief Mocco working from home, he would just go stir crazy. He needs interaction with people. Let's see, what else? What other service recruiter? Many other service recruiters have a 2 to 3 year tour. Would AFRS ever consider mimicking that timeline? The majority of tier 1 feel they could benefit from shorter tours. I could see that. We would draw this all the way back to DSD, right? That's a handshake agreement between, Chief Cody at the time, who was SIM staff, with the CFMs on the 4-year assignment. And it creates, please don't take this the wrong way, but your CFMs for your functional career fields, they're dealing at you leaving the career field and they have to bring you back into the career field, right? So really planning is really important. And so there's that piece of knowing that, TSgt Adam Wright is leaving in 2020 and he's coming back in 2024 and he's going to go right here, right? There's a planning piece. And they have to pull somebody else out the stack to put them in 2024 because they have a tax, we'll call it, to pay with the DSD program. So going to a shorter tour, it would cause the career field to pull more people out of their functional pipeline more often. And I used, the 4-year tour, right? If you do a 4-year tour, over a 12-year period, you're going to have to pull 3 airmen to cover that 12-year period. Whereas if you do a 3-year tour, now you have to pull 4 airmen. So that's one more person you're having to pull up, and when you put them back in, you got to spin them back up, right? So I understand the side from recruiting. Yes, completely, absolutely. I would love to be less time on goal. Got it. You know, that's a tough part of this mission. But I think when it comes to we have to respect the career fields and the training pipelines for all 100 and I think it's 56 different AFSCs and shreds we have.
Okay, we had a question come through in the chat. It was asking, well, would they have an idea when the next flight chief ads/assignments list will drop?
I don't have the exact date on it, but it should be here shortly. You know, that's so the CFM and MFM roles, right? So as the career field manager, I'm mainly the numbers guy. Like I'm the numbers guy to make sure our manning's in the right. I do a lot of the policy piece for recruiting service. So I'm your recruiter on air staff. So any questions that come up on recruiting, I'm the guy that usually come tackle. Chief Rawls is the MFM, the MAGCOM functional manager. So he deals a lot with the faces and the spaces, right? Now, I get all the traffic on it, and I want to say they are, right now we're waiting on the final release to come back, and I think we have like onesies and twosies left from the CFMs, because I see them come through, they trickle in. So we should be getting closely, probably the next 2 weeks. I was a little hurt when Tier 1 went from 3.5 to 4 years. When did it go from 3.5 to 4 years? Give me the background of that, Sergeant Smith.
I'm just referring to my previous office partners. They moved out the door at around 3 years, almost on the dot, and they just they bumped up to 3.5 to 4 years for Tier 1 assignments.
I think that should have only been like during COVID, because I think everybody should still be getting their MOIs at about 2.5 years, and PCS in 3. It may have slowed down because of COVID.
I'm at 3 years tomorrow, and I haven't even received my MOI back or seen anything really. Yeah.
Sam Smith, I'm gonna look up your stuff, Sam, and you should be right there. You should be right there. And I said we had to slow down because of COVID, because we stopped PCSing.
Understood.
For 4 months. So, but I will check on yours specifically, man, and get back with you.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Where is AFRS on conversations of 8R going to 3G? Man, that's a good question, Sean. So I got here in June, and Chief Snyder did a lot of work on the 3G piece. And I guess, so when I came in, I had to get spun up on, okay, so how does this affect everybody? So the first thing I learned, and I'll share this with you guys, is the Air Force has about 9,000 billets that it holds outside of career fields to do special duties, execs. I mean, it's everything that's not a functional AFSC that we recruit to, right? So it's the little bag of extras, recruiting MTIs, MTLs. There's 9,000 billets. And these 9,000 billets promote right to the Air Force average, right? So follow me here. So and I'm gonna pull up in the spreadsheet just because I know I got our promotion rates on it. Let's go the 20 E8 cycle. We'll go 19 E8 cycle. The promotion rate for the Air Force was 10.77%. The promotion rate for recruiting service was 10.45%, which is really, you're at dust at this point. 21 of 201 eligibles made it. If we aligned as a career field, we have 43 senior master sergeant billets, right? If there are 43 senior master sergeants, we don't see any promotions. So you'll actually see it this year in the senior cycle, right? I think we have right now 45 or 46 was the latest. So we're overmanned in senior master sergeant right now, but we're still going to see 6, 7, maybe 8 senior master sergeant stripes. Because versus a career field, we have to promote to the vacancies there. So you look, especially when you start getting a flight chief, that master sergeant, senior master sergeant, chief master sergeant, it'll really start to box us out if we go outside of a special duty. So myself, the EDT team, which is, Chief Rawls, your 3 group superintendents, Chief Farrell and RSO, right math. How do we get around to this career field thing? It helps us in the piece of we don't have to have people released. Like I don't have to go to a functional to release your PCSU. But we really haven't seen a problem with that. My first cycle here, we had out of 113, we had, I want to say it was 98 released, which is pretty good. The 15 or so that weren't released, their career fields were under 85%. So you're already looking at the career fields where they're struggling. So more to come on that. It's not off the table, but it's something that we're definitely, I don't want to just flip the light switch and then all of a sudden we don't see a master, a senior, or a chief promotion for 5 years, right? What would that do? Yeah. Now that Tier 1, Tier 2 manning is better, are you allowing more recruiters to palace chase and go into guard reserve recruiting positions? What would be the prime time within recruiting assignment to apply? So you're on a code 50, right? So again, that code 50 is the tax that your functional AFSC is paying. So you still have to align with your code 50. You can apply. Now the Air Force, being that retention is so high right now, the Air Force is entertaining turning on these programs, and I think they just released the PAG today. I'm not sure if you guys have seen but they just released the PAG and for one or a one. I'm not against allowing people out. I don't think that manning is our problem in recruiting service at all. Like we don't have a manning problem. When I look at the numbers, we don't. We have a large number of Tier 1 folks that are staying to Tier 2. I got a large amount of folks that want to be flight chiefs that are volunteering for flight chief jobs. I told you guys, I mean, I think 6 or 7 overmanned on senior master sergeants. Our chief numbers are pretty low right now. We should see that bump up here in the next week or so. But overall, Tier 1, Tier 2 manning, we don't really have a issue in manning those positions.
Sir, has there been any thought about lifting code 50s for Tier 2, such as MLSs?
Lift the code 50. So again, the code 50, we got to remember, is the tax on your career field. So while I have no problem, I'd lift your code 50. It's your functional manager, your PFSC, your primary functional, that would have a problem with me lifting a code 50. You'd be like, well, I'm not ready for starting right until 2024. You can't spring start right on me at 2023 or 2022.
I think they were more worried about staying in a position longer in the Tier 2 as opposed to, I know flight chiefs can have that code 50 and they can stay longer. I think they were saying if I'm an MLS and I enjoy where I'm at, can I just stay and stay and stay and stay and stay where I currently am?
Yeah, we haven't really had that conversation yet, but I mean, I can definitely bring that up to Chief Rawls and see what that would look like. Some of the problems that you face with that is you start locking up you have a traffic jam between Tier 2 and Tier 3, right? I mean, there's still the non-vol system, but nobody wants to be non-vol, right? Who in here, raise your hand if you want to be non-vol. Nobody. So it's kind of it's a dicey game when you start messing with the 50s. Code 2, Tier 2s still belong to your functional, your primary FSC, because most of you are underneath that 7-year gap, that you belong to them. Before you lose your function, you lose your skill level. So it's kind of a little tricky.
Copy. OTS is moving to a new recruiting model. Can you explain that for us? And do you think EA will eventually adopt a new model as well?
Okay.
Adopt that new model.
So OTS is not moving to a new model. OTS is beta testing a new model. And I want to make sure we stress that. Yes, they will be trying some new things with OTS, but no manpower has been moved. There's no locations that have been changed. They're changing the way they do business within the squadrons to beta test it. EA eventually adopted. We got to see how OTS does with it first, right? Myself and there's quite a few of us that have been doing this for a few years that we got some initial concerns, but we're not just going to say no and not try things, right? We're absolutely want to leverage the thoughts and ideas that are out there, but at the same time, we wouldn't just change the program without beta testing it. That makes sense?
Yes, sir. We had one come through. Who can we contact to see if we've been released from our career field for this current upcoming flight chief assignment?
So once the list is finished, so this is what happens. Miss Birch sends me the list of everybody in the cycle, right? I take it and I send it off to all the CFMs and MFMs. And then they go through and they do all their magic. Well, excuse me, before I send it to them, I go look at all their career fields and figure out the manning for that skill level coming back to their career field to see where they're at. Because, we have the letter that says that if their AFSC is over 85%, then we get to keep them if they want to stay. So we send that off to the MFMs and CFMs. Then they slowly trickle this back into Ms. Birch, right? And then once the complete spreadsheet's done, then we take off on a cycle. But all of it has to be done. And then once it's all done, it's sent out to all the chiefs get it. All the squadron soups get it. RSX will get it. So I'm not sure when it's going to come out right now. I think we're still waiting on that piece for all the CFMs to come in, but it shouldn't be long.
Okay. Can you share what the intentions are for allowing senior airmen and more staff sergeants to join AFRS? How will this affect Tier 2, Tier 3 manning in the future? And do you think these NCOs will have a higher probability for needing to do more Tier 2 positions before they promote to Master Sergeant to be eligible for flight chief?
That's a lot to unpack right there. Man, that's a lot. Let me, I'm going to dice into it in a few different sections, right? What are the intentions for allowing senior airmen and more staff sergeants to join AFRS? So in 2012, the Woodrow report took senior airmen out of the DSD pool, right? They took senior airmen when DSD was stood up, and it was not, senior airmen were not included. Our initial going into this was just a couple months ago, was how do we increase the pool of individuals to grow through recruiting, right? So we looked at, let's do a test bed. So a while back, it was no senior airmen whatsoever. We're going to bring 50 senior airmen in, and they're on this DSD cycle right now. We put out an ad, and we needed 50 off the bat, and we put out an ad, and I think the ad was open for 3 days, and they got 118 hits. The pool of senior airmen available is, I think, 56,000 senior airmen. Ooh, hot mic. We good now? Okay. It's about 56,000 airmen, senior airmen. So what we're looking at when, again, I'm kind of the numbers guy, right? For managing the career field. For E5s, I'm authorized 796 E5s in recruiting for Tier 1, and I only have 432. I'm 54.3% manned, right? And staff sergeants, Tier 1. Tech sergeants, I'm authorized 529, and I'm 653. So again, when we talked earlier about how do we get to the 3G career field, we got to balance these numbers first. If we don't have a balanced authorization and inventory list going in, we're going to screw promotions up for years to come, right? So bringing more senior airmen in, we're going to take some of those authorizations for tech sergeants and put them in as senior airmen. For mass sergeants in Tier 1, we're authorized 33, and we've got 96. So really, if you look at our bubble, we're real big in E6 and E7 for recruiting service. But we've done that to ourselves through DSD, the Woodrow report, eliminating senior airmen. We bring staff sergeants in, we bring tech sergeants in, and a lot of them get promoted to master and Tier 1. So we've got to try to level the playing ground. So we want to bring a younger force in to kind of grow with recruiting. second part of that question was, how will this also affect Tier 2, Tier 3 manning in the future? I think 50 senior airmen won't make a big cut. We're talking 1,359 authorizations, and you're talking 50 senior airmen. At this point, we want to bring senior airmen to say, hey, like, we've done senior airmen for years. I was a brand new staff sergeant when I came to recruiting, but you know, there's a bunch of us old chiefs out there that were senior airmen when they came to recruiting. To show it's possible. It's not the end of the world to have a senior airman out there on the bag. And to be honest, all you old tech sergeants and mass sergeants and senior mass sergeants, those kids don't want to see you. They don't want to hear about your high fiber diet. They don't want to hear about your 401k. They want to see that Scat Pack Charger in the parking lot. You know, they want to see that. They want to see somebody they can mirror themselves after. They're not interested in, you know, Sergeant Wright's high fiber diet and how well he's doing on his PT. So we got to get younger as a force because that's what we recruit. Will senior airman staff sergeant have a higher probability for needing to do more Tier 2? I don't think so. So I came in as a staff sergeant, and I'm not just going to base this on me, but I did 3 Tier 2s, right? So I was a squadron trainer, I was squadron operations, and I was group operations. I think it's the career path. I don't think they're going to have to do more Tier 2s. It's about how they study, how well their records, you know, how well they perform their job. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that go into it versus them just saying you got to do a Tier 2. And going from Tier 1 to Tier 3 is not the norm standard. You got some folks that are very high performers. Myself, I wasn't one of those guys. Like I said, I did 3 Tier 2s before I got to be a flight chief. You know, and then if you ask CMAS Sergeant Lindoff, he'll probably tell you I was a really bad flight chief. Well, before they promote to Master Sergeant. So again, it's really based on the individual to say that a senior airman. I mean, I think about Chief Rawls came in as a senior airman, and I want to say he did HP and MEPS. You know, Chief O'Donnelly came in as a senior airman, and I want to say he did maybe 1, maybe 2 of them. You know, this hasn't been the norm for years. When we went to again, the Woodrow Report in 2012, which we're looking at here 8 years down the line, when we cut the inbound of senior airmen and staff sergeants, we made our force a lot older, right? So now we have this big bulk that's all sitting there at the door like, ready to be a flight chief, boss, put me in. Did I answer all that question? Who has any questions about it? Because that was a lot to unfold right there. That kind of hurt my head a little bit.
Yes, sir, I believe you did. There was another question about making Tier 1 to Tier 2 mandatory if we're pushing Tier 3 plus before flight chiefs can move up into pro soup status. But I believe you just answered that Tier 1 to Tier 3 isn't the norm.
It's
so,
not.
Kind of answers that.
If we push flight chiefs to Tier 3 plus before they can be a pro. So that, again, that's a year's previous policy. And just so you guys know, I removed the pro soup letter. If you make senior master sergeant, you're going to be a production superintendent. You're going to do what the Air Force is paying you to do with your rank wise. Some things were done previously that were just, as we try to balance the force, that we've got to live through the legacy. But the new norm is you make senior master sergeant, you're going to be a production superintendent. It doesn't matter if you're EA recruiter, you're a Tier 2, you're a Tier 3. Like you've got to have the position commensurate with the rank. I'm getting kind of lost in there. Okay, here we are.
Would you be open to discussing what your priorities are as our CFM? This could be in regards to increasing, maintaining Tier 1 or Tier 2 manning, or would you be open to sharing incentives y'all have working?
So there's a lot of big things that are working Air Force wise. So some of the working groups going on is called one of them is pay for performance, right? So you guys are familiar with SRBs and IEBs, initial enlistment bonuses and selective re-enlistment bonuses. We're working some programs right now. Do we pay for performance? Meaning you have a certification level, therefore you get an additional pay. I tie it to the PJs, right? Like PJ has jump pay, dive pay, all these qualifications that as long as they maintain, they get additional pay per month, right? So think about it for, and this is nothing in stone yet. This is all just, again, as we're rolling this together, is I think about for recruiters, like you're in human resources, right? Like, is it pay for performance? Is it you have your SHRM certification, right? That's going to make you better at the job you're doing. And so with that, be an increased pay as well instead of an IB. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force is 200% in line with what she calls force generation, and that's what we do, right? You're seeing we're right now, matter of fact, in 2 weeks we got a meeting to refab DSD, and it's not really going to affect recruiting as much as it's going to affect everybody else. Is if you're not on the force generation piece of DSD, you're really not DSD. It's not that developmental special duty, because the things that you're picking up here in this skill set are a lot about the nuances of big Air Force. Whereas, I don't know, they got a bunch of people that they just stuck in the DSD that really didn't fit, a bunch of AFSCs. What we see historically is promotion rates are a lot higher for people who are considered a DSD. So she's looking at alternate avenues. How do we promote faster for those? They're looking at the three big. It's called EIRSD, and I wrote it down because God knows my memory don't help me that much. And it's enlisted instructor recruiting special duty. Right? And will that be the title? I don't know. It's just we're spitballing right here. It's your MTIs, your tech school instructors, and your recruiters. Those three, they're big. So she's got the A1PP team, which is our promotions team, looking at how do we promote people that come into one of these three. Like, let's put some real value behind these three that we say are so valuable. That we say the DSD program is so valuable. We've shown that they get promoted at higher rates. And I'll give you an example. So E6s, 31 point over the last 3 years, right? 17 through 19. The select rates for board average for people who weren't DSD, 31.6% were selected. Those who were DSD, 36.6 were selected. 36.6%. That's for E6. For E7, it really starts to separate. So what we're saying here is that E7, who has never been DSD, had a 26.6% chance of picking up rank at E7, right? If you were never DSD. If you were DSD, it was 47.8%. So we've shown through the promotion periods that over the last 3 years, hey, so we got this. Do we need to change it up some? So that's another program they're working on right now. The Enlisted Force Development Strategy. You guys are familiar with the Little Brown Book? Who has a copy here? Can show me. Who can show me a copy? Who got it? One of y'all got it. No. Nobody? I know.
It's digital now, right, Chief?
It's digital. Good call. I see two of them. That's good. I got you. Sergeant Chen and Sergeant Smith. So we're in the midst of doing the Enlisted Force Development Strategy. It's going to be different from the Black Book in a sense of, like, the Black Book really isn't a strategy on how we develop our force. If you think about like Marine Corps, Army, they're real deliberate in their development, and you having certain experiences at a certain time in your career that help you progress and develop your skill set as a soldier, a Marine, whatever. So we're putting this piece together. Where it gets really, really tricky is we're going to tie all the CFMs into it, and it's going to have a functional piece of it. So there'll be a piece of like, this is what we do. Like, I'll have to write this piece of the 8R on that says, this is what we do and how we develop through our tiers of recruiting service. And every functional will have one. The strategy should be a perfect roadmap for you to know, like, hey, okay, so I'm at 5 years in the Air Force. This is what I need to do. I need to be looking for these opportunities. Right? And then that's the guys that are going to get picked up, and they're going to move on and they're going to progress. You guys keep it really quiet, but they're looking right now to change our name tapes from brown to blue. Super secret, secret squirrel. Don't put it on Facebook. I'll recording this video. So it's just one of the things they're looking at, right? Should we be blue? So that's on the table. The ID patch, I just got hit with that one this morning. EMTs have it, TACP has it. Well, CSAF and CMSAF are like, if career fields want to do it, they can do it. So we'll start exploring that within recruiting service. Do we want something there? What do we want it to say? I think right now it's got a 3 or 4 letter requirement as the most you can go. So what does it look like? I don't know. I mean, we went through years where we didn't like calling people Ricks because it's a code. It's not a person. We're, lovey, gently, whatever. What it looks like, we'll probably do a big test of recruiting service with Chief Goldstrom. He'll lead that pack and help us develop the right thing to make sure that we get the right thing and we take pride in where we're at. Man. I'll bring this up because we talk about this wanting to be a flight chief piece, right? And supervising and leading. And I was at AFRS 2 weeks ago at Shaw Air Force Base. It's CMSAF, the 8 MAGCOM command chiefs, and they have an advisory team. There's like 14 of us, 14 to 15 of us. More than that, it's 20 of us. Some of them were telephoned in. But we're talking the pieces of development, and I thought it was really interesting because I hear it a lot when I'm talking to the team. Is, well, I'm a tech sergeant, but I don't lead, right? Like I'm a tier 2 recruiter or a tier 1 recruiter, and now I'm missing out. Like my EPR is missing that piece of me leading, and some of the data passed on I thought was kind of interesting. 42% of tech sergeants in the Air Force do not supervise. 42% of tech sergeants in the Air Force do not supervise. 46% of staff sergeants in the Air Force do not supervise. And this is kind of one of my main points I wanted to touch with the crowd is you got to be the leader amongst your peers, right? A lot of times as we talk about mastering this craft and we talk about being a good wingman, how do we promote and develop ourselves and promote and develop our airmen? I think we have to look at how are we leading our peers. And I'm sure a lot of my chief brethren in here could probably stand up and would agree, when all the chiefs walk into a room, who do you think is leading who? Do I walk in like, I'm a CFM, God damn it, and this is how we're going to do things, right? It's not how the business works, You really do a lot of peer-to-peer leadership. So I say that because the levels you're at now is whenever you want to really start developing these relationships and working within kind of give take. Something I remember as a young guy is my emotional intelligence. And I'm not saying you guys, this is young Staff Sergeant Daigle. I had no idea what emotional intelligence was, right? And I thought that if I thought this way, like what the hell? Like why is it not this way? It should always be this way. And I think as I grew up and I led teams and I worked with different airmen, it kind of caused me to start to listen to understand somebody versus listening to reply. And really trying to get to the bottom of the thought process that person has. And sometimes we want to shut people off real quick. Well, no, you're wrong. That would never work that way. So I think it's this piece that you're at right now, this 5-6. It's leading amongst your peers, that lateral peer-to-peer leadership. You may say, well, I'll never be top 3 president or 5-6 president, whatever. But these guys that do these things, they're taking time out of their day and they're building these structures for all of us to come together and have these stupid conversations. And I say stupid because it's some of the conversations we talk in circles, right? We got to be able to listen to each other, engage each other, and respect each other. And that's not always the situation. So I leave that with you guys. Be the leader amongst your peers. Who are you mentoring? I'll share this. As a young staff sergeant, I was in Lafayette, Louisiana as an EA recruiter. And I had a tech sergeant that was in Columbus, Mississippi. And if anybody ever been to Columbus, Mississippi, God bless you, super small. Podunk, middle of Mississippi. He would call me and just check and see how I was doing different flights. And I thought, hey, he's cool. We're BFFs, we're friends. We'd chat. And as I'm watching this guy, every day, I say every day, maybe every other day, different things. I mean, one time I came in and his daughter left me a voicemail that said, "You're in big trouble, mister. You better go home and put a uniform on," from his 4-year-old. And we really built this relationship. And I look at this guy, he was a tech sergeant, I was a staff sergeant. He was mentoring me. He's calling me, asking me, "Hey, what are you doing? How's your processing going? Hey, I saw the drawer and I saw you took a route yesterday. What's going on?" This guy had no vested interest in my success other than just being a caring teammate, right? So I asked, who are you helping mold and mentor? Who are you spending time with talking to? If you're sitting there and you're just got your binoculars on you, focusing on you, you're going to watch a lot of things are going to pass you up. Be flexible. One thing that the Air Force is really hitting on right now is the multi-capable airmen, right? And you're looking, when they deploy into FOBs, we're smaller than ever. We have a bigger mission than ever. Is the airmen that can do multiple tasks. There's been conversations, and nothing has moved. We're not execution stage by any means, but we're having the conversations well, hey, does a headquarters just need a staff? Does a commander just need a staff of 10 airmen? And those 10 airmen do whatever the commander, the chief, the pro soup need them to do. It may be today you may be a trainer, tomorrow you may be ops, the next day you may be going out to the MEPS, right? You have to start honing that skill set. Don't get stovepiped into where you're at. Make, every opportunity you get a chance to learn, get out there and get dirty and learn. Master your craft. This is a super sensitive topic, especially amongst a bunch of alphas. Because I think everybody here will be like, "Yeah, I'm the master of my craft." And I'll be vulnerable with you guys. I walked into this seat and I was like, holy hell, Batman. Wow. There is so much that goes on. And guess what? I know none of it. I get a congressional tasker with a 45-minute turnaround. I didn't know what the hell a damn congressional tasker was, right? But you grab onto it and you just start asking questions and you plug the pieces together and you put everything you have into it to master your craft. You're only ever going to be as good as you try. Don't let production numbers be the only identifier, because I'm sorry, folks, it's not the only identifier. It's not. It kind of goes into the other two topics we just talked about being a leader amongst your peers, being a great teammate, being flexible, multi-capable. We've had periods in time. There's all kinds of different theories on this, and please take this is my belief. This is not AFRS's belief. This is Chief Daigle's belief. Production numbers give you an identifier of how much effort a person will put in, right? But understand sometimes the level of effort can be dictated by location. 180% in Panama City and 180% in, mark your Midwest, North Dakota, Fargo office. 180% is completely different in both situations, right? And so I say that as you have to master your craft. And I don't know anybody who would disagree that you notice those things as leaders, as a flight chief, as a pro suit, as a chief. I knew my guys that were out there that they're in Panama City, they're 180%. And I know my guys that were out there in Fargo that were 180%, that were honing that craft, that skill set. They were making contacts, great customer service. You never heard a peep out of anything. All you heard about was the great things they were doing, right? So don't let that be your only identifier. Let's see what else we got. Earlier, someone inquired about 330 special warfare recruiters being tier 1. Out of 96 authorized SWRs, 27 are tier 1. And Brian, bring me back up to speed, man. Why did we turn those to tier 1? It was because we didn't have the tier 2 volunteers, correct? But it was done a few years back.
Yeah, tier 1, I believe, when it was stood up, was just based on what was detailed over. And then from what I was told, I've been here since August, the tier 2 positions are identified based on sheer distance from the flight chief, because we cover such a large span of land, the entire U.S. and the world, that they have to have some experience prior to hitting the ground.
And those tier 1s, they were go dudes from General Levitt, weren't they? That was during the Tiger team whenever we had to go to tier 1, right?
Yeah, and we still have some guys, gals in our squadron that are tier 1 that come straight from the schoolhouse DSD. And future state, we're looking to tag some locations that hasn't been vetted all the way through for tier 1 for only special warfare or combat support recruiters that are vetted from their CFMs.
Gotcha. I appreciate that, Brian. I have been vectored SW, so that was my concern for career progression. I'll tell you, man, just bloom where you're planted. You know, I did 3 tier 2s because I didn't understand that piece. And my first tier 2 was probably mediocre. I'm surprised I'm still here, guys. You know, and it was kind of when I learned, like, all right, well, if I really I'll try. I'll give it my best. You know, and I guess when I got to the group and I learned the bigger perspective of what goes on, you know, and the sessions pipeline, it really opened my eyes. All right, Master Sergeant Halstead says, Sergeant Late, disregard if this was already answered, 3GO conversation. What is the status of the AFC change after completion of second tier assignment? So nothing has stopped, right? We have to get the AFSC, we have to get the manning in balance before we progress any further. That was it. 180% with fair goaling anywhere is radically different than 100%. Well, so Sergeant McKay, I would say when we talk about 100%, 180% of unfair goaling, have you had that conversation with your leaders? Have you had that conversation with your flight chief? Have you had a conversation with your pro soup? Have you had a conversation with your chief? You know, to say that intentionally they're doing an unfair goaling practice, I would hope not. And I think that's a piece of, we got to be the adults, and we got to just have a conversation with them. Like, hey, I don't think this is fair because of X, Y, Z. There's unknowns to a lot of things. There may be something else that is unknown that I don't even know where you're at, Sergeant McKay, so I can't even begin to elaborate on what's going on in your squadron.
It was a general speaking, sir. I'm in ops, and it's just the numbers I've seen in the past.
Yeah. So your squadron is one that, I mean, I remember years back they go to 100% manning, and it was probably 2015, and goals were really out of whack in a squadron. And then they came back with the new pro soup, and they got goaling under control. So you're right, but I think as the 5-6, we're trying to understand, and we're talking about these three principles. I think that we have to be the true leader and have the conversations. If you feel something's unfair, you got to have the conversation, but we also have to listen to understand versus being like, well, this is the only way. It's just unfair because I'm getting screwed. You know, nobody wants to intentionally screw you guys out there, I promise.
All right, so we were curious if you had a few more minutes for some more questions.
I do. I got about 12 minutes, and then I got to roll, but you got me. I'm here.
Okay, copy that. Then we're going to roll into the closing. I just want to say that I also agree with your "don't let your number define you." My first year in tier 1, I finished at 14%, and here I am as a tier 2 Linko. So don't let that be your only thing attached to your name. Thank you for your time from your busy schedule to talk to the 5-6 Council. We appreciate your support today and for all that you do for us. At this time, I'll pass it over to our 5-6 Vice President, Tech Sergeant Matt Davis.
All right, cool. So yeah, I see one more question that popped up since we got a few more minutes. So the question is, do you automatically lose your AFSC when you go from tier 1 to tier 3, or the 8 year still applies?
So it's 7 years, and yes, this is 7 years that applies. So once you cross over that 7, so the problem is a functional manager doesn't want to pull you back into the loop and have to respin you back up. And so at that point, when you lose the AFSC, it's a point of contention with some other pieces the Air Force is doing. So will it change? Very possibly. I know it's in a lot of conversations right now. When we're talking, especially when we're talking pay for performance, right? There's conversations about 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 level going away. You know, as we get into the piece of what is the performance level needed to do the job. So what does that require? What certification, what training is required? But for right now, yes, if 7 years, you're functional. I mean, we just had a mass sergeant that was out, I think, for 8 years, and functional was like, I don't want to take him back. And I was a cop, all right? And the cop was like, I don't want a mass sergeant that is a 3 level. If I'm gonna take a mass sergeant back, he needs to lead a flight. And if he doesn't know what he's doing, you know, I got to train him back up. So yes, automatically lost.
Awesome. Cool. So I just want to say thank you to TSgt Adam Wright for stepping up and taking the charge here. And, you know, Chief Daigle, if you want to just throw any last minute words out there before we let you go.
Hey guys, I really appreciate what you guys do every day. You are where the rubber meets the road. And we would not assess the 29,688 airmen we need without you. Whether you're in a tier 1, you're a tier 2. If you feel you don't have value to the organization, I promise you, you are one of the most valued people in the Air Force. You talk to Chief Master of the Air Force, you talk to Chief of Staff, they talk about recruiting constantly. What you do is valued, and we would not sustain without fourth generation guys. Continue to focus on mastering your craft. I look forward to seeing as many of you as possible that want to stay in recruiting as we develop some. That's another piece. I mean, if you guys got 2 minutes, we're trying to grow the tier 2 piece, right? So because we have such an abundance of people that want to stay, and we look at some of the programs that we have that we just haven't touched in years. You know, we're working, and that's the next meeting is about a outreach program to get into the areas where we're just underrepresented in the Air Force. So you're going to see things that start to spin up new opportunities. I encourage you all to jump on every opportunity you get, because you never know that next opportunity may be the big one, right? My email is always open, kevin.daigle.1. Don't hesitate. Shoot me an email, pick up the phone call, smoke signal, something. I thank you guys all from the bottom of my heart. As a recruiter for the last few years, I mean, the Air Force is on your backs, and there's a lot of pressure. That goal every month is a lot of pressure. I know. You know, that piece of I've got to do this, and I'm a single man by myself out here. It's tough, guys. I appreciate it. If there's anything I could ever do for you, please don't hesitate. Reach out, pick up the phone, call.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chief. We really do appreciate the opportunity. And I know you're very busy up there, so thank you for taking that time to come out and chat with us. For everybody else out there, this will be posted on the Facebook, if that's okay, Chief. We're going to put it up there on the 5.6. So if you're on Facebook, check out the Recruiting Service 5.6 page. We're always throwing opportunities, other seminars like this, so definitely take the time. And if you want to get involved, we're always trying to find people that want to get involved in the stuff we have going on. So definitely reach out to us. We're here for everybody in the 5.6, and we want to give you as much opportunities as you can to excel, grow, and become the best airman you can be. So, yeah, that's it for us. I appreciate your time, Chief.
Yeah, thank you guys for doing what you do.
Yes,
Y'all take care.